Hello, this is Kerry King for the Queerly Biz podcast. This is episode 12 now. And today we have...
Pinch
Paints. Yes, thank you. Welcome. We know each other.
We do.
We've known each other for a while. We haven't seen each other in the flesh for a while.
No, we were just before we started recording. We were trying to figure out how long it had been. And I was a literal child when we met.
Yes.
So
And now you're a literal adult.
I don't like that, but yes. Yes.
You're still quite, pint-sized.
Oh, yeah. No, that's always been a thing. I was always promised a growth spurt by my parents and it just never happened.
Whereas I was not promised a growth spurt and it very definitely did happen. And that made life more
Maybe
awkward for
stole
everyone.
mine.
Yes. 20 years before, however.
Yeah, okay, fair. I'll let you off.
So, Pinch, pronoun check for me.
They, them.
And gender identity / sexuality.
Non-binary, and I've always said bisexual. It just kind of is the most...
So when I came out as
accurate.
bisexual, you were one of the first people to message me and say, welcome to the club, which I really appreciated.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's something that I've known for, since I was very young.
Oh, really?
And just, but obviously when you're going back about 15 years when we met, roughly, it wasn't something that was quite so easily discussed openly.
I was going to say, because
understood even.
We've talked about before when I was a kid and with people I've had guests on who are similar age to me, and we don't remember it being talked about at all when we were younger.
Not at all.
I can't remember even really 15 years ago. Brain is addled, but it wasn't really a thing for you either.
No, it was that classic, in school, like if something was negative in any way or someone was acting a bit lame, they were gay and things like that. That was just very commonplace.
Yeah.
And it was still seen as a very negative thing, at least sort of in sort of like our sort of part of society pocket and stuff. I mean, Obviously there are going to be more progressive parts of the country and the world in certain areas, but ours was not one of them.
No, it was not. I remember when I used to get called a leser at school a lot. That was a word that was in a lot. And then when I used to go clubbing at Chicago's, oh, you guys are so young.
Not a clue where that is. I'm so sorry.
So Prince of Wales Road. Chicago's. And it was mostly full of kind of older divorcees at the time. And I was an 18-year-old going there with very long legs, which were quite admired. It's nice and a bit sleazy. But then if I turned anyone down, and I particularly remember this one guy who I sort of said, I'm not interested, thank you. And he went, oh my God, you're such a lesbian. And I was like, right, why am I a lesbian just because I'm not interested in you? I mean, obviously I now know that my interest extends to women, but I never really got that. And he said, you've got short hair, you must be a lesbian. Yeah,
that was a very common thing that I'd hear too. When I was younger, it was just like there was a couple of people in my primary school, and their mums had like really short hair. It's like, oh, your mum's a lesbian. It's like, well, no. For one thing, her husband stood at the school gates as well, collecting you, the child. It's like,
just a child who appeared from somewhere. And as saying a child who appeared from somewhere, I still frequently get people say they know that I had a wife and say, is there any chance you could be pregnant? And I say, well, no, I'm a lesbian. And they say, yes, but it's still possible. There are things. And I was like, yes, but I'm fairly sure I'd be aware of those things.
Probably remember.
I don't think it's going to be an accident. But that's definitely still a thing. Now, going on to your gender identity, and you said non-binary, there was something you said just before we started that I found really interesting. Can you just confirm that again for us?
So it's more like in terms of pronouns, because I appreciate I'm very feminine presenting, especially right now. I'm growing my hair out. I just like braiding it. That's the reason for that. But when people get my pronouns wrong, or it's my preferred pronouns wrong, and referred to me as she, her, it's not offensive to me in any way. I don't go, oh my goodness. It's not like that at all. It's just I prefer they, them. It would be like if I called you Kelly instead of Kerry. it's not offensive to me. It's irksome and it's not quite right.
Yeah.
Especially if you've already introduced your name as Kerry.
Yeah.
And then they still get it wrong. It's kind of like, oh, actually.
Yeah. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't.
Yeah. And I get that. And I know that, as you said earlier, not everyone is going to be the same in that, but that's how you feel.
Of course, yeah. Like there are some people who have a very different opinion, and for them, language evokes completely different feelings, and that also should be very much respected. But in my case, it's just kind of like, this is what I prefer. This is how I feel more comfortable in myself, and yeah.
So, do you have a coming out story, either for your sexuality or gender identity, or both? And I'm going with friends and family.
So, I mean, everyone kind of really knew. Like in terms of my sexuality, as I grew up, it's like no one was shocked.
But how do they know? Because people have said that to me, and I'm like, well, how?
It's probably because
I
have a tendency to be as subtle as a brick through a window, so it doesn't help. But I remember when I was a lot younger, obviously before like I was like 18 and going out, and it was interacting in the wild, as it were, a bit more. I remember coming up to my dad, kind of not through an argument, but through a debate. But he was talking about someone I knew in a negative way. Used the term leser, and was talking about them in that way. And I just went, well, like this person's not the only one, actually. and he
leave that in the air.
Yeah, and he was driving, so he couldn't like react,
massively
overly, because otherwise, and he went, oh, I'm sorry, and that was that really.
I love those reactions.
And like I have family members who still don't quite understand, and it's not out of disregarding my feelings kind of way. It's I just like they just don't get it. They're in a certain age brackets where it's just like, Are you tempted to kind of try and educate them, explain more, or do you just kind of leave it alone? I mean, it's more I can't be bothered. Like, which is really bad. But like,
do you think if it bothered you more, you might be more
absolutely
tempted to?
I will sprinkle it into conversations, and I do have other family members who are very much like on it with my pronouns and referring to me pinch instead of like my legal name. And like again, if someone calls me by my legal name, I don't mind. It is still my name. It's not a dead name by any means.
Right.
But it's just it feels wrong.
Yeah.
Not like a visceral reaction wrong, but like that's not correct. That's not
doesn't really belong
I am.
to you. It's like saying my old surname. Like when I was Kerry Davis, obviously a lot of people still know me as that, but and don't know that I got married. So now as Kerry King, King just feels right, and it feels like who I'm supposed to be. And when I say Davis, I'm like, this doesn't really feel right anymore. I can understand that. Now, when you came in, I said, "Oh, pinch paints," and I realised that. Probably people went, what? So tell me what you do for a living.
Well, Pinch Paints is sort of like my username, my Instagram handle for everything, because I'm Pinch and I paint.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
It's such good branding and just easy to explain.
That's what it says on the tin.
We like a bit of alliteration. So
tell me more about what you do.
So I am a little bit of a jack of all trades in terms of painting. Jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a master of one, which is the full quote.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
One thing that I really love is researching like colloquialisms and quotes.
Cool.
And a lot of the time, the quotes that I use today like that are only half of it. So curiosity killed the cat is curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. Is another one.
I didn't know that either.
And
That's
blood's thicker than water. No. The blood of the brethren is thicker than the water of the womb, which means the exact opposite. Anyway, useless facts for you for today.
I like those though. That's really
just
cool.
Fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
Or at
I
least
love
it to me.
like one of the other things I really like is like the kind of old words that we don't use anymore, like kind of Shakespeare language and old words. I love those. There's some great words in there.
Yeah.
I occasionally sprinkle into a sentence and just amuse myself with the baffled faces that look back at me.
I like it. But yeah, so I paint all sorts. I paint
What do you paint?
by commission. So a lot of it is portraiture. So someone's
Of people?
Of people.
You do
also,
people?
I do people. I started off painting just people, but,
Okay.
and like family portraits, people's children.
Oh, really?
But now I've
Children.
I know. But people have stopped having so many children, you see,
Oh, God for
and
that.
started getting dogs and cats instead. So I've had to
Better.
start painting dogs and cats too. So I got asked for a long time to do pet portraits, and I was like, oh no, they're not my specialism. Like, here is some other person that does them much better than me. And then I thought, no, I'm going to give it a go. And then so I spent time like learning about like bone structure and muscle structure in feline and canine faces and things, and now that's what I do as well.
Yay! I see. I didn't even know that you did portraits. I associate you with a picture I saw that you did of Norwich Market.
Yeah,
and that's what I think of you when I think Pinch Paints. That's what I think of.
So this is the thing. So I studied architecture at uni.
Oh, okay.
And I love cityscapes. So for my more commercial work, like things I make prints and that of and sell in various different places, that's actually cityscapes. But by commission, it's mostly portraits. The thing is, if you're painting someone's child, you can't really plaster that over the internet. I happen to be okay at doing them, so they look like the children.
Excellent.
And then
Always useful.
People pay me for it to be all right. And then, so obviously there's that whole thing about like not... unless I have a very express like permission and I'm very encouraged by the person that's commissioned it, who also, like for me, it has to be a rule. It has to be the parents of that child as well. That is when I will put it on social media and advertise that part of my work. But otherwise, it's very much like, this is a service I provide. I can show you examples physically through us, like showing you on my device, etc. I will not share those images. I'm very, very, very strict about that.
Awesome. Now, I saw a video that you did the other day, or when you did it, but of the gate in Norwich.
Erpingham Gate.
Brilliant. And I've never seen that picture before, and it was really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Tell me the story about that gate.
So, architecture being something I'm interested in, I painted Erpingham Gate, so I thought, hence the video.
Now, what is Erpingham Gate?
So Erpingham Gate is one of the big gates in Norwich, archways that lead to the cathedral quarter. You go through it, and then the cathedral's there in front of you. And I really like Gothic architecture in general, and so I was like, I'm going to paint some historic landmarks in Norwich, that being one of them. And so I did this back in 2018. So it's been out. I've made prints of it and sold it for many years now. It's an open edition as well, so there's like loads of them. And I found out that I hadn't painted Erpingham Gate. I'd painted Ethelbert Gate because there's two. And so I made a silly video and I kind of framed it a bit like a silly influencer apology video of like, I messed up, I've done this terrible thing, and it was really fun.
Which one is the one that you said? Which one is Erpingham Gate? Is it the one at Tombland?
Yeah, so on they're both on Tombland.
Oh, are they? Right, because I couldn't work out where the other one was.
The one that's kind of like nestled in the corner, the one that I painted,
is
Ethelbert Gate. The one that's kind of on the main stretch of road with that little zebra crossing.
Yeah, that's
Erpingham Gate.
Right. Now we know.
Well, now we all know our gates and learnt something today.
Now, so apart from gates, what involvement do you have with the LGBTQ community within your work? Do you?
So I'm self-employed. I'm really lucky. I get to do this whole art thing full time. And hooray! One of the main things that people always ask me is like, "How much money do you make?" And my answer is, not a lot. Enough to cover myself.
Starving artist.
No, I'm not starving. I'm very lucky in that regard. I
maybe that's why you never had a growth spurt.
Maybe.
My mum didn't feed me.
No, I mean, it's not. But so I earn enough to cover myself. But that was only been since 2020. So I have been in retail jobs since then. Retail, general customer service, etc. Before that for a long time, and that allowed me to save up a buffer amount of money just in case it all went to shit. And luckily it didn't, and I'm still doing it, so that's nice.
So do you get to have much involvement with the community, the LGBTQ? Like, do you do anything around Pride, or do you
I
talk about it a lot?
I don't make it like a really focal point of my work. My work's very much just fine art stuff. It's not like there isn't a particular target market for me in the LGBTQ community, but I suppose
with architecture it's fairly neutral as to who it might appeal to.
Exactly. It tends to be slightly older folks, but that's about it. And that's a very, very generalised sort of trend that I've seen purely through my own sales. But I do get involved with Queerfest every year.
Oh, excellent.
Run by Rachel Collier-Wilson.
Yes, try and take Rachel in here one day. One day I will get them in.
I love them. So actually I have Rachel to thank for helping me. I don't know if they're aware of this. Maybe they are now. But I have Rachel to thank in terms of me figuring out who I am. They were the first non-binary person I ever met, really, and helped. They were explaining about non-binariness as I think it was a part of a Queerfest event. And then I went, same. Oh, okay. That's the language that's used to describe someone who feels like me, because for a very long time I didn't have that language and I didn't understand my own head. I was like, well, I don't feel like a boy, and so I'm not trans, but also I don't identify with my body, and I was born female, and I'm not going to say otherwise, but it's very much not felt like my body, and I am very indifferent to it.
When did you come out as non-binary?
I don't know, but I feel like it's later than I feel like it was a long time coming, and fully publicly it was maybe 3-4 years ago.
Okay. And have you've been self-employed that whole time?
Not the whole time.
Oh, okay, right.
So when I kind of was comfortable being out, as it were, I was still employed in a normal office environment.
Okay, so good office environment. I've been in plenty of those peculiar places. Some are great, some are very definitely less than great.
Yes.
Do you remember when you were onboarded and trained to do whatever it was that you were doing, did you have any specific training around LGBTQ or DEI policies?
Not that I remember. There were lots of policies that we had to read within our first week. Just given a load of PDF documents and just being like, hi, read these, cool. Are you done?
Sign them.
You're done, sign them, nice.
And then did you find that your work environment in the office was supportive of your gender identity or sexuality?
So I didn't go to my employers and go, hi, I'm non-binary now. I didn't feel comfortable doing that.
Okay.
I told some of my colleagues that I was friends with, because you spend lots of time with these people in office environments, 9 to 5s, etc. And some of those colleagues were great. Some of them asked questions that I didn't want to answer. And it was a very mixed bag.
That's a really good point about the fact that people can ask questions that you don't want to answer. I think a friend of mine who's trans said that as well, that people seem to think that they could just kind of come up to them and ask them questions. It sort of gave them free rein. And actually they were concerned about something that I'd said at my launch, which was something like, if you're not sure, ask. And I'm glad they said that, because I wanted to clarify that, it's if you're in a situation where you are specifically dealing with gender identity and you're not sure, ask. and that person probably would be happy to clarify for you. But no, certainly don't feel like you can just kind of wander up to someone in the street and start asking questions. That is absolutely
it feels
not acceptable.
A bit like being a zoo exhibit.
Really?
It's like for me, like as I am quite female presenting, and I'd like to keep it that way really, and it's less difficult, I would say. But when people know it, they start feeling real comfortable real quickly about asking all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
And it's like, I mean, do I ask you about your body in intricate detail? No, I don't, because that's just a weird thing to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and something that is not ideal. People don't seem to realise. So
one thing I liken it to is going up to somebody, a colleague, and saying, "What underwear you're wearing?" You wouldn't do that, and that's underwear. That's not under the underwear, you know?
Yeah.
Etc. And like,
yeah, that's true.
You know, if you asked a colleague what underwear they were wearing, HR complaint. Like,
I'm definitely going to use that in my training.
Like, you wouldn't do that.
No, you wouldn't do it ever.
And that's clothing.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right then, cool.
And how did that make you feel about your relationship with your job? Did it change sort of how you felt about going to work?
Yeah. I felt really uncomfortable around certain colleagues. And, you know, like, I wanted to keep to myself more, like way more. And it wasn't the reason why I stopped working in an office environment. I've always wanted to be self-employed, so I'd like to make that clear. But I do now think, oh, I'm so lucky that I don't have to deal with stuff like that at all.
Yeah. Being self-employed in that respect, again, obviously for me, I've been self-employed for, this will be my 10th year.
Hooray.
Hooray. Happy decade. You are a 10th of a century. I feel very grateful that I don't have to deal with that kind of thing on a daily basis. And it's not something that I would, every now and then people say, well, you know, do you think you should just get a job? And I think, oh, maybe, but I don't think I could. I don't want to go back into that environment.
Absolutely not.
Because I find it so unsupportive and so, bitchy. I've said before, it can get very catty and people can be, you know, they sort of talk behind your back, and I just can't be doing with it.
That's,
over the drama of it all.
I mean, there tends to be a lot of drama when you put people in the same confined space for 8 hours a day. And like, so I didn't raise any of this kind of stuff with HR. I didn't go to my boss about it because I didn't want to talk to my boss about that part of my life. I just didn't think it was relevant or really the company that I worked for's business to know that kind of thing. So in hindsight, I feel like I should have made more of a fuss, really, to be like, this kind of stuff's happening. Like, people ask me weird questions and I don't feel comfortable in this identity, in this workplace environment. But I also very much felt like if I had, I would be seen as an inconvenience. I would be creating a problem out of nothing, air quotes. And, you know, and I didn't want to deal with the hassle. I just wanted to go to work, make a bit of money, and come home again.
Do you think that you would have been more productive at work had you felt like you were in a more comfortable environment and supported by everyone? Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't have niggling sort of thoughts in the back of my brain about things which weren't work related. I mean,
well, if you didn't have to worry about it, it wouldn't have been there.
Just, you know, and I am a very anxious individual, and it's taken, you know, many years for me to sort of get over it, for certain aspects of my anxieties, and to come up with coping mechanisms, etc. But it would be like one less thing that my brain can go, this is why everyone hates you about.
One of the things you mentioned about saying you weren't comfortable kind of announcing your gender identity in that environment, which I think is a really good point to say that if you feel like you have one gay person in your business or one trans person or one non-binary person, they don't have to kind of come out and say, I'm this person, therefore I need this support. That might not be something that they're comfortable with, but your business should still be inclusive and have working practices that include everybody, for whoever, because you may not know, or like your bosses didn't know that you were non-binary or feeling in any way different. And you're right. It shouldn't be for you to have to say, I'm part of this community and therefore you need to treat me better, or you need to treat the whole community better. It should be something that is, I feel, inclusive within working practices already. And if it's not, then it kind of needs to become that way. Have you had any kind of experiences where you've been a customer that you felt really like you're walking into somewhere that is a really good space for the LGBTQ community?
I mean, the one that immediately jumps out for me is I went to Lucy and Yak. Shout out to those guys.
Lucy and Yak, yeah.
And like even me now speaking, I'll use a gendered term like guys a lot, but I'm like, I mean that in a everyone way, not yeah. And it's still, I feel like, something that I'm working on too. I would like to point that out. Call myself out, as it were.
Susie did exactly the same. Susie said, I use guys a lot, and and was trying to do that less.
Yeah, I know some people don't like that so much. But yeah, no, so I like their clothing. It's for everyone. And, you know, and I like how it can be altered in any way, shape or form, because my body fluctuates quite a lot. So it's really nice not to have to buy new clothes every single time that happens.
I think I need to go to Lucy and Yak. But
yes.
we went, when we were asking questions on Gentleman's Walk and being avoided like the plague, doing a survey about Rainbow Assured, we decided to try and go into the shops that we knew were more inclusive, and one of those was Lucy and Yak. So I went into Lucy and Yak in Norwich, and they were brilliant, and they happily had one of their LGBTQ employees answer some questions for us and sort of tell us about their own workplace and how they found it, any particular experiences, and they were very happy for someone to kind of talk to us about that. We also spoke to somebody in Fat Face, and they were very, very complimentary about their workplace.
That's good.
What was the other one? Doc Martens. I mean, you kind of think so, wouldn't you? Yeah.
More alternative fashion.
Yeah, I guess so. And what was the other place we went to? We went to Body Shop, and they said that they'd found that the culture was inclusive, but they didn't remember receiving any kind of particular training to kind of make it that way. It's just, I guess, was the kind of people that they approached, that they had working there, and that were the sort of people that were attracted to that workplace. And then Gerald's is another one that we went into, and we spoke to a trans employee, and she was really like delighted with the culture that
that's
she
good
received.
As a customer, that's good to know.
Yeah, I've heard mixed reports, but I'm speaking to Gerald's about potentially training their staff. So I think it's a little bit at the moment more by luck than judgment. But I'm glad that people of our community feel safe in those environments. And I think so at the moment, self-employment is kind of the one way that you can guarantee that you're in an employment that fully supports you.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit sad that that's the only way you really feel like you can be fully supported, is to know that it's only you that's supporting you.
Yeah, I mean, like, it is... Self-employment presents its own challenges.
Massively.
And it can be very isolating.
Can I have some sick pay, please?
Yeah.
Or holiday?
No. But you... Well, at least in my experience, in the creative self-employment sphere here in central Norwich, everyone kind of bands together a little bit.
Yeah.
And rather than having one company with lots of employees, it's lots of companies and everyone kind of like is very nice to each other.
Yeah.
And like
I think we've got a really good small business community in Norwich.
And like a couple of my friends who are down in London have said, oh, like, you know, you could do really well with your art here. There's way more like gallery opportunities and exhibition opportunities. It's such a bigger city. There's so much more going on. I'm like, yeah, but I like it here. Yeah. I've made my own little I don't want to say I've made my own little family, because that sounds really, really cheesy, but like a community for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, like the network that I've built myself here is so lovely. I would find it very difficult should I ever have to leave it.
Yeah. I'm hoping to do more work and training in London, because I know that there's more opportunities, but I still want to live in Norwich. And I would still like to keep my business based here because it's such an awesome place.
And currently there are no direct trains to London. You have to...
Are they not?
No. I don't know what's going on, but I've had to go like a couple of times in the past month, and it's, yeah, inconvenient.
Well, I know I've got to wrap things up because we're getting to the end, but I just want to mention a company. I don't know if you know that they exist, and I think they're a really good company as far as LGBTQ goes, so I want to talk about it. And they particularly support self-employed people. It's a company called Out Britain, an organisation, and they're like a trade union for the LGBTQ community. So for LGBTQ people who have their own businesses, they are like a really, really supportive body for them. It's free to join, to sign up. So
I'll check them out.
Yeah, go on to Out Britain. I went to one of their, they did like a launch of a big survey of LGBTQ businesses in September, and it was brilliant to get together with all these other LGBTQ business owners, and I felt really supportive. So hello to Matt Dabrowski from Out Britain. They're really cool. Anyway, we have to wrap up because we've been chatting and waffling and quite a bit, and I very much enjoyed seeing you again.
Thank you for having me.
You're
like
very
when
welcome.
I got your message, I was like, oh, it's Kerry.
I could do that. Thank you for saying yes. I really appreciate it.
All right.
So this is Kerry King. I nearly said Kerry Davis. What am I doing? Kerry King and Pinch Paints for the Quilly Biz podcast with Rainbow Assured, making your workplace a safe space. I'll see you next time.
Bye.